Do you believe Nick Saban when he says he wasn't aware of the election?
That's one of the most laughable things I've heard all year.
Thank you.
I actually laughed my butt off, frankly.
Uh-huh.
Nick Saban knows his audience and knows his people and knows his state and knows what plays best. And what plays best is an answer like that. All he said in that was Bill Belichick saying Seattle. 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 Because the focus is in one spot. At Alabama, the focus is the next game, the next opponent, the process. And him saying, well, I wasn't really aware, is a message to all of his people. Don't worry, I'm locked in because this is where you're worried about upsets with the number one team at this time. You really think Nick Saban, as intelligent as Nick Saban is, that he didn't respect the process of the American people and vote?
No, but
and
Charles,
not know what this day was? Not a shot.
Here's my question. Do you think it's only a front for the media and that he actually addressed it with his team? Because he is still a leader of young men at a state-funded academic institution. And Stan Van Gundy, for example, was talking. I think it was Stan Van Gundy a couple of days ago. He regrets not talking to his group of young men, granted professionals, right, about the election. Does Nick Saban owe it to his team to say something? And do you think that he actually did and he just won't admit it?
I think that he did, and he won't. And I think that he also won't admit it. He's not going to lay anybody in unless he's controlling the process, and I get that. That's up to him. But I'd be shocked. One of his best friends is Joe Manchin, former governor of the state of West Virginia. Remember, Nick's a West Virginia native. Joe Manchin was one of the guys that was rumored early on to possibly dive into the presidential race, running as a Republican. So I believe as a Republican. I may be wrong on that, but that's one of, Nick Saban is a very intelligent man. I've been around him a number of times. You probably have as well. I'd be shocked if he didn't mention it with his players. I'm pretty darn sure he voted. He may have done it early. And then him saying that is pretty much a way of saying, I'm not going to talk about any politics with you guys. Because he knows that when you start going politics, it's fraught with disaster for a guy like him. And bottom line is, in the state of Alabama, he can do that because the Alabama people want to know that he's focused on the next game. I would dare say that if he coached at a different institution, a different part of the country, he might actually handle that question differently. I may be giving Nick Saban way too much credit here, Andrew. Maybe it's just the side of me that's like, no way is a coach going to, in 2016, going to miss on this opportunity. Because when Joe Maglia, the head coach at Coastal Carolina, has put his team on buses, the entire team, to make sure they got there and voted, when Roy Williams cancels practice in North Carolina and they knew it ahead of time to make sure everybody has a chance to vote, I think most coaches are doing that nowadays. It's not like the days when we were growing up where it just wasn't addressed at all.
Exactly. And I'm not suggesting Nick Saban needs to endorse a candidate, but what I am suggesting is...
I think that's why he didn't want to talk
about
it, frankly. He wanted to stay out of it, and everybody leave my locker room alone. But you and I, if we put the spies on him, I'm pretty darn sure he voted.
Yeah, and he owes it to his young people as well, young people that look up to him and seek guidance from him to tell them you need to be a part of the process and actually exercise your right
That's why I was
to vote.
That's why I was hesitant, like some of our brethren, to dive in on him because people were dove right in. Oh, that's irresponsible. Oh, that's this. We don't know what he did behind closed doors.
Sure, exactly.
And I'm betting behind closed doors he talked with his team about it, and I bet he exercised his right as an American and went to the polls.
As a leader of young men in all your stops, whether it's UCLA or Colorado or Washington and all the locker rooms you've been in your life, as a head coach for an election, especially an election as big as this one we had on Tuesday, do you think you're responsible to stand up there and help your young men, your student athletes through the process, tell them to vote, tell them that they need to be part of the political process? And do you believe Nick Saban when he says he didn't know there was an election on Tuesday?
The answer is yes. That's part of our role as head coaches, especially at ages 18 to 22, is to keep track of what's important in life. Winning and losing certainly is hugely important to the endeavor that we encounter as team and teammates, but to understand, hey, you've got to have a full experience here. You've got to become part of a college campus. You've got to become part of an American society, and your civic duty is to vote. You have no right to complain if you're not willing to go out and exercise your inalienable right to vote. And I think that that is a absolute course of action for all head coaches. And I know Nick gets lost in the season and gets myopic at times, but I don't believe that he didn't know it was an election. As much as I believe everything Nick Saban says, I don't buy that for a second.
The Rich Eisen Show, weekdays at noon Eastern on Audience.